locomotives in the United States are a very rare sight. But narrow gauge steam is an even rarer sight. In the United States, not many narrow gauge railroads still exist and operate. But there are some out there that have been preserved, such as the Durango and Silverton, the Cumbres and Toltec, and the East Broadtop, and others as well. But sometimes, theme parks have railroads as well. Due to a theme park's relatively small size, narrow gauge is ideal for them. In this program, we will be seeing 3 different locomotives at 2 railroads, doing their respective operations at their theme parks. We will be visiting the Tweetsie Railroad and Dollywood in particular to see the trains there. And the locomotives we'll be seeing is X White Pass and Yukon engines 190, 192, and number 70. You will not want to miss this program with great steam action and much, much more. And with that being said, I present to you Theme Park Narrow Gauge Steam Spectacular. Our first stop is at Tweetsie Railroad in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Opened on July 4th, 1957 by Grover Robbins Jr., Tweetsie Railroad is a fan favorite amongst tourists in North Carolina. The engine operating today is number 190. Locomotive number 12, the park's signature engine, is unfortunately down for a major overhaul at the moment as of 2025. Number 190 was built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1943 for the White Pass and Yukon Railroad. She was built as a member of the S-118 style class of locomotives. 190 served during World War II and helped the construction of the Alcan Military Highway in Alaska. She served a valiant career on the White Pass until her retirement somewhere in the 1950s. In 1960, Grover Robbins Jr. was looking for a second locomotive for his ever-growing theme park, Tweetsie Railroad. 190 was the best choice for him, and 190 was chosen by him to be brought to Tweetsie Railroad. She would arrive to Tweetsie at some point in 1960, and has ran at the park ever since. The park has a second locomotive, East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad number 12. She was built in 1917 by Baldwin, and she arrived at Tweetsie in 1957 when the park opened. Unfortunately, as of June 2025, number 12 is not running and is undergoing a major rebuild. She is expected to run again in either 2026 or 2027. Now, with all the history out of the way, let's watch 190 tackle the grades and pull these passengers around this incredible little railroad around the mountain.
hope so, but there's a lot of people here watching.
After the train goes around the mountain, it returns to the depot to drop off the passengers. This is a fantastic little theme park railroad with great steam action and awesome shots. If you wish to see this park and railroad for yourself, be sure to visit the Tweetsie Railroad website and book a ticket. It's well worth the visit. And with that being said, this will conclude our visit to the Tweetsie Railroad. Our next stop brings us to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, to the theme park known as Dollywood. Dollywood originally opened as Rebel Railroad in 1961. After many name changes, the park ultimately became Dollywood in 1986. The railroad was the first ride here, hence why it was originally called Rebel Railroad. Pulling our trains on this particular day on the Dollywood Express is number 192. 192, like her sister, the 190 at Tweetsie, was built in 1943 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. She too would be sent to the White Pass and Yukon Railroad to help aid the construction of the Outcan Military Highway. Like her sister 190, 192 is also an S-118 locomotive. 192 spent many years on White Pass until she was retired in the 1950s. She would sit out of service until 1961, when Grover Robbins Jr. would open a second park known as Rebel Railroad, and 192 would be the engine sent there. "192 has seen the entire evolution of the park, from Rebel Railroad, Gold Rush Junction, Silver Dollar City, Tennessee, and present-day Dollywood. 192 would be the only operating locomotive at the park for a while, until 1977, when the park bought 3 other locomotives, 70, 71, and what was left of 72, which were also White Pass and Yukon engines. 70 would not be restored, though, and would not operate until 1987, 10 years after the park bought the engines. Now, with that being said, please sit back and relax and watch this engine tackle the spectacular grades up the mountain as it pulls the passengers.
Week at the most, he's never been gone longer than a week. There's David waiting to get in here. We'll see what it knows there. Tell me when you know the privilege place to come over
tackling an astonishing 6% climb up to the upper loop of the railroad, the engine will come back down the mountain and return to the station.
Dollywood Express, you got some great food. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day here at Dollywood.
Now that the trip is over, 192 will make its way back into the depot. This is a fantastic little locomotive that can put on a fantastic show. If 192 is ever running while you're at Dollywood, you will not want to miss an opportunity to catch this fantastic engine working hard to tackle the grades. We have returned to Dollywood in the later spring months of the year. This time pulling our trains on the Express is locomotive number 70. Engine 70 was built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1938 for the White Pass and Yukon Railroad. She was one of 4 of her class built, along with 71, 72, and 73. With 71 being built in 1939, a year after 70, and 72 and 73 both being built in 1947, 10 years later. 70 would serve on the White Pass, aiding the construction of the Alcan Military Highway until it was retired in 1963. She would then sit unused for 14 years in a siding until 1977, when theme park Silver Dollar City, now known as Dollywood, bought the locomotive along with 2 of her sisters, 71 and 72. She would not run, however, until 1987, when Silver Dollar City, now known as Dollywood, would rebuild the engine. She has ran at the park. With 2 toots of the whistle, 70 and her train will make her way up the mountain. Sit back and relax and watch as this engine tackles the whopping 6% grade up the mountain.
Yeah. Save them chickens. Bye-bye. All right, folks, I want you to sit back and relax while I tell you about this road. Like you can see, it's pretty sitting behind me there.
Once again, after making its way around the mountain, 70 will bring its train back down to the station.
I felt like I was gonna hit the bricks.
We will let you know when it is safe to go. Thank you and enjoy yourself here at Dollywood.
As we come back into the depot around there, they want to please remain seated. I will let you know when it is safe for you to exit. Remain seated, everyone. And there, we're back. Folks, everybody stay seated. I'll let you know when it is safe.
And as the engine comes into the depot, that concludes our program on these theme parks. We hope you enjoyed this program that was filled with great steam action and other things. If you wish to see more of my content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Matt Dotson Railfan Productions. If you wish to visit these two theme parks, visit their websites respectively and book some tickets. It's well worth the money. And as always, this is Matt Dotson Railfan Productions signing off.